Hello everybody and welcome to this APS demonstration of the brand new Klasik 2020. My name is Kris and I will be walking you through all the new things about that new model and explaining a little bit in detail what's new, what's old and what's better. And then we'll have a little Q&A and I'll try to answer as best as I can all your questions. Hello Jeff, hello from Poland. We'll wait a little bit before starting to digging into the info I want to share with you, just to see if anybody else comes in online. So I hope you're doing okay in these very difficult times. I myself, as all those who work in the sound industry, music industry, have been touched more by really the change in the market and the loss of jobs than the isolation, because as you well know, sound engineers train all their lives to be isolated. So we are experts in the matter. Oh, I see there is Łukasz Sienicki, yes, the owner of Tall Pine Records. This is an amazing studio nearby where I live. So hello, Łukasz. Hello, Grzegorz Stasiuk, a great friend. We have APS Russia, great, welcome. Jerzy, hi. I'm reading through. Mr. Ringer's status, New York City checking in. Great, how is New York doing? I heard there's a lot of trouble with the coronavirus there. I hope that this will soon pass over and then we'll be able to get back to normal and start doing some great music again and let musicians play and do concerts. But I guess that will take some time to come back to normal. So I'm getting an info that that I'm heard on the left more than the right. Let's see if I can do something about that. Nope, looks like it's just one channel. There's not much I can do here. It should be on the, yes, I see. It is. I'm using OBS for the first time, so that's probably why that happened. Let's see. No. Oh, mono. Okay, what about now? That should do it. That should be in both channels now. Yeah, that's confirmed. Hi, Andy Baker from Taiwan. It should be now in both channels. I've turned the source to mono. Can you confirm that? If it's okay, then we can maybe start. So, I have here with me the brand new APS Klasik 2020. So for those of you who know already the brand, Klasik, the original one, has been with us for quite some time. And it's been a very successful model, probably the most successful of all the models we've done with APS so far. Well, we kind of felt it's high time we did something to all the info we heard back over the years from users and our own experience that we've had with it. So basically, we took it back to the drawing board and we went through everything and tried to see which are the areas which are really good and don't need any change, and which are the things we would like to change. So basically we started with the most obvious one, which is the logo, because funny thing is, the first question I got from a customer concerning the then new Klasik, the old one, was, Kris, where is the lit logo? the one that lights up on every APS model. Well, there wasn't one on the Klasik, and there was so much demand for it that we thought, well, why don't we just do it? So we went ahead and put it in here. It's a lit logo, so when you turn it on, it lights. So the other change is that we decided to offer it in only one color. So it's like Ford says, you know, you can have it in any color as long as it's in black. So it's in a nice black finish, imitating wood. Rather handsome, I'd say. And that's about as far as these things go. But you will notice maybe that the speaker itself is a little higher, actually. And actually, it's also longer along the depth, right? So what we've done, we decided to give it more space in which the speaker, the low speaker, could handle the low frequencies better, and so ease off the effort. And so the speaker is quite substantially bigger from the old one. Other than that, well, you basically have the same drivers. So the other changes are behind the scenes in the electronics. It's more powerful. It's 200 watts per channel, 100 watts per driver. So it's 50 watts more powerful, which is always good, right? We always need more power. And because the bigger box and the bigger volume, we could redesign the way the crossover works and the way the woofer handles the low frequencies. So what happened here is that I'm going to turn it around. There you go. We redesigned the ports. As you can see, the old ones was a one round port, and this one is double, and it's a vertical instead of horizontal port, and it really sounds much better than the what we had before. Even though that one already sounded good, we thought we could do better this time. So what you have here is a double port that really handles the resonance and the low frequency behavior of the woofer much better. I personally prefer that because it makes for a much clearer bass. You can push the levels harder. The extra power gave us about 2 dBs RMS and 2 dBs in peak extra. And also what it means is that the woofer moves less with the same amount of pressure, which means that it's much more linear in its restitution, right? Because, as you know, the extension of the woofer, when it goes beyond a certain level, it imprints on everything else that's playing back as well, right? So all the mids and the low mids as well. So we try to keep the woofer working as little as possible in those low frequencies. At the back, what we have here, let me now go around and zoom in on the speaker so that you'll see more clearly what's at the back. Okay, so what we have here from the left, we have the tweeter level. So basically that, as you know, works both ways. It's on either plus or minus. So say, for example, you have a recording space, a listening space like your studio, which is a little bit on the dull side because it's got a lot of wool or sponge material that's around the speaker. You can push the tweeter up and compensate for that loss of high frequency. Vice versa, if there's a little bit too much highs coming back from the walls, you can compensate that way. Next one up, you have the bass. Now, you'll notice it's a little strange because you have 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 3, 2. That is to do with the fact that we wanted to keep the electronics as simple as possible in the space behind. So that's the reason the engineers chose that topology, and I'll explain what all these settings do. So number 2 in the middle is what we call the passive mode. So this mode only uses the woofer and the ports to create the bass, right? Now there's no electronics, there's no electronic extension of the low frequencies. The next one down is 3. Now you get a little bit of an extension, right? Which is often desired in different styles of music, hip hop, R&B, and such. And then if you still need more, you can switch it to 1, right? 1 is the lowest, so you get the lowest extension. It gets you down to 39 hertz, which brings the whole spectrum from 39 to 25 kilohertz. Volume, right? Everybody knows that. I personally like to keep the entry signal low so that I can push the output of my sound card up and keep the quality of the sound, especially if it's digitally controlled. Not all sound cards are analog controlled, so the lower you go, the worse the sound becomes sometimes. So I like to keep those levels high on the sound card itself. So I'll be turning that knob down. Next, you have the RCA connection, which is unbalanced, so 6 dBs lower, and the classic XLR connection for balanced cables, right? Ground lift here, so whenever you have a buzz, you can turn that one up, but I would suggest finding the source of the buzz rather than switching the ground off. Because just in case there is some kind of an electrical problem, we don't want you getting shocked. Okay, let me go back. I'll zoom back up. Okay, let me do this right. There you go. All right, we'll turn it around. Okay, now for my impressions using it on daily basis next to the Aeons. There you go, the Aeons are there, right? Aeon 2s and the extenders. So it's quite a hefty contender, you might say. I've been using them on and off, switching between the two, sometimes working longer hours on the Klasik and then going back to my Aeons, which I know very well. And I've been pretty surprised. Actually, it holds its own, and I find that the mixes are translatable. I don't have to tweak too much. The stereo is really good. I can set my pans and everything properly. The mono as well works well. And when I'm working with my EQs and compression and finding the spots, especially using the dynamic EQ notching filters, when the one that you do, for example, in Isotope, where you hold your Alt and then you sweep just to make sure you heard the right frequency that you want to cut. It really nails this well. It actually really kind of surprises me how different each speaker responds to that. So I found that very very useful, very easy to use. Low end, great. Really great. I mean, I'm not a user of high levels, so I can't say how it would translate if you were mixing at 90, 92 decibels. I'm mixing it more like 80. I found it really nice. There is no distortion, nothing, just clean bass all the way down to the 39 hertz. And when you're kind of working on your kick, for example, at that low end, for example, using a Pultec or something, you can really hear that work. So I'm very glad, very happy with the way this turned out. And also what it means is the bass doesn't clutter up your the way you hear the mids and the low mids, which sometimes some speakers tend to do. The crossover is really smooth. Can't say I have problems over there when I'm sweeping through. It sounds natural to me. I mean, there are obviously, the two-way speakers, they have their own drawbacks, but here this one doesn't seem to show them in that manner. And so, yeah, well, I guess that's about it. Oh, we kind of worked also on that kind of frequency range from 80 to 220, which is, as you know, critical. And depending on how that is equalized in the speaker, it can really change the way you perceive that in your mix. So you either may feel that, oh, well, that's fine. There is no muddiness going on there, no boominess. And then you just kind of leave it at that. And then later on, you realize on other speakers, there is a problem. Or vice versa, the speaker is a little bit too boomy, so you overcompensate and end up with a mix that's too thin. So I found that this one gives me a very nice balanced result. I can basically mix the whole day through, go to any speaker, be it a laptop or a bigger speaker or a pair of iPhone headphones, and it sounds to my ears great. And my mastering engineer Magda is also satisfied because she has less work to do on the mastering. So I'm going to have a look at the some of your questions here. Yes, David from APS reminded me to speak about the phase. We're crazy about the phase. As you know, phase is almost everything. If phase is what gets stuff clear and dynamic and poppy, or it smears the whole thing, right? We know that every time we use equalizers, we shift that phase in that band, right, of frequencies that we're working on. So it's the same thing with analog crossovers. So whenever you do something to the crossover on the before the amplifier stage, well, you're shifting these things. So Greg, the master behind our speakers, is extremely obsessed about these things. He wants that phase to be absolutely minimally moved, so to speak. So I think we really kind of we can hear that phase is really nicely controlled in that speaker. So which is all the better for you to make the right decisions during the mix. Self noise, I'm just going from back. Oriol, hello, what about the self noise, Twitter hiss? Well, I can't say I've noticed much. Not at least I have my speakers from a meter 20 away, and well, they don't seem to be hissing any more than the others. Not to the level I would find disturbing. Okay, Jan Safarik, is it possible to build in those to a control room front wall, even though it has rear bass-reflex ports? Well, I guess you probably could, Jan, but you'd need to have space behind and calculate your the power allowance, so you actually ventilate them. And really, I mean, why would you want to build them into the walls? They are small speakers, really. There are places closer up to you, and let the big soffit mount speakers, be in the walls. Is Aeon first? Okay, so the question is Aeon still superior monitor compared to these new Klasiks? Well, in truth, I haven't listened to the old Aeon and the Klasik 2020, so I will be sure to do that and let you know. We'll make a note of that. As you know, Aeon was our first model, very popular too. It's a bigger speaker. You'll get a more, I guess you'll get there is more space in it, but in the way that it delivers the power. But I'll check it out. It would be interesting to compare these two. I've been comparing them more to the Aeon 2s, which are the most recent ones, except the Klasik. Okay, Funky Junk, what are the key sonic benefits to your ears compared to the original Klasik, which was already a fantastic monitor? Well, if I could sum it up, it's the low mids and the low end. What happens is that it's just about clearer enough to make your work even easier, in treating all those frequencies, which, as you know, are very important, all the way up to 500 hertz. I find this monitor to be easier to work with, just enough that I would choose it over the old one, although the old one was, really very good already. So that would be the main thing. The power delivery is smoother. There is more headroom, so you can push it harder. There is less compression effect, and also the bass vents are really fantastic. You can push the speaker really hard without any wind noise and things like that. In a small studio. Okay. Put aside the bass extender of the Aeon 2, what is the main sound difference between the Aeon 2 and the Klasik 2020? Well, having them both at the same time and having switched off the extenders, I would say it's like riding a really good car, right? And then maybe a very expensive sports car or Tesla or something. This one rides really good. You can really do the job. But as you know, the quality and the price don't go in a linear fashion. So if you really want to change something that's really very good to make it that only this much better, you need to put a lot more money in. So that's what Aeon 2 is. Aeon 2 is like the top of the APS range for two-way monitors. And it's something I work on every day. And I'd say it's a little bit less fatiguing. It's got more, it's even more detailed. The bass response is better. But is it worth the difference in money? Well, if you have the money, yes. If you don't, then obviously it isn't. And I think that Klasik will get you really maybe 70-80% of the way in terms of the monitoring quality, and the difference is that you pay with the Aeon 2 is that. But as we know, in a mix, the 10-20% is what makes the difference between a greatly mixed song and the one that's not so great. Yeah, we pair them. Just like all speakers. Jan was asking if we supply the speakers paired. We do pair them. That's what we always did, and we haven't changed that. Hold on, let me go back. Put aside the bass so that we have, what would you say, the best gain range for the Klasik. Love from... Well, I'm not sure I understand if that thing about the gain range. If you could just clarify that for me. That's Jonathan Fang from Taiwan. Okay, you got the new ones. Okay, well, I'll be happy to hear what you think, Plastic People. If you have the new ones, please share. The first time I heard Klasik, I was struck by the lower mid. Yeah, KB Music Studio is saying that first time they heard Klasik 2020 was struck by the lower middle compared. That's right. I mean, the way it responds, although it's the same driver really, but because of the changes we made under the hood, it made it much more predictable. You kind of know better what you're doing, right? So it makes you work faster and get to your results in a more comfortable way, really. It's a much more comfortable speaker, we could say. Although Klasik was already pretty good, well, you can always make better, so that's what we hope we did. Okay, Plastic People, you're very impressed. That's nice. Yes. Well, it's covered, but yes, in essence, it's a paper cone. Where are they available? Well, they're coming. They're getting to you in the US, so be sure to check out our distributors in the US to ask them for a demo if they're nearby you. If not, it's a big country. We know we can't For the moment, we haven't managed to put them in every state, but do check out the distributor list. You might be lucky enough to be nearby one of them, and maybe they'll be happy to send it to you for the demo, which is what we do here in Poland, and most of our distributors worldwide do that too, to make people test them in their own environment, which is what we think is the best way to choose a speaker. Hold on, what's the optimal distance from a listener for Klasiks to work best? Well, that really depends also on where you sit, how your room is organized. I have a pretty big room. It's a 44 meter square room, so I have a lot of space, and I'm I think about 1.20 meters, as I have said, from the speakers. That seems to be a good distance for me. Obviously, you're trying to be, you have that triangle equal on each side, so try to set them up that way. But also, I would say that if you really want to make a good, a pair of speakers shine in your room, it would be good to take everything out of furniture and put them somewhere where they sound good and not because they look good. So it would be important to find the right spot, because obviously the acoustics has a great impact on the speakers, and if you happen to put them in a place where there's a big notch, for example at 100 Hertz, you'll get a dip. You'll never be able to compensate with any even digital equalization or anything like that. So it would be better, I think, to move around the studio while there's nothing there, to find the best place for it. What I meant was how much I should turn them on for the. Well, as I was saying, Jonathan, what I do is I set my my Apollo right up to the highest level I want to use it at. I'll leave a bit on the knob, but then I turn the speaker down until my SPL reads about 85, and then what I can do is just turn it down when I want to, and I know this is the highest SPL I'll be using it at. Hold on, going through. What else? Is it worth to upgrade Klasik to Klasik 2020? Well, that's the eternal question. That is the reason why we pay for the upgrades for our plugins, and we upgrade our preamps and our microphones. Is the difference worth it? I guess it would be down to putting them side to side in your room and making the decision. You can obviously sell yours for, I guess, pretty good price, and try to get the new pair, which is the Klasik 2020 is sold at the same price, so it's pretty well priced too, and I'd say, I'm not a seller, so I wouldn't try to convince you. I would rather say put them aside and see side by side, and try to see for yourself if the money difference is worth it. Hold on, let me see. Okay, so that's done. There is some more. Hold on, because there are many questions I'm trying to go through with. Oh, Amrit, with my current setup, I might have to raise them up a little to clear my laptop screen and stuff on my desk. Is it alright if they are pointed down to compensate? Well, I guess if it's not too much, yes. I mean, one of the things I keep in mind, Amrit, is that I try to organize my space in such a way as to have my desk and whatever is on it be kind of out of the way of the speakers firing, right? So if you kind of, the easiest way to do it is put a mirror on your desk and see if you can see the monitor speakers from the position you're listening at. So if you can see them, they can see you. So that's your first reflection. Okay, you might want to take that into account, given the time delay and comp filtering that you can may get from it, you might want to experiment with that a little bit. My desk actually is pointed upwards, so it's a little bit on that, right, like that. Speakers are just set at the right height, but you can move them. The rule of thumb really is to have the ears kind of between the tweeter and the woofer. And now I know that some people set speakers the other way around, turning them on their, on the longer side. Well, the problem is that well, while we're listening on them in our rooms, little listening rooms, it's fine because we don't move around, right? Now, Łukasz from Tolpine can tell you he's got the brand new API, a beautiful console. If you set speakers like that on a console, you tend to move a lot. And now the way the speakers behave in out of the axis varies quite a lot from this side to up and down. So depending on how you put them, you may get quite varying results because the speakers will mix together in a different way, right? So yeah, I would look at it from that way. Just set your speakers a little bit, maybe with a stand, with the help of a stand, or maybe lower the stand if you can, or get a stand that that has like I have a stand like here. There you go. That's the part of the stand here, and you can basically turn that knob, right, and it makes the stand go up, right? So it tilts the speaker a little bit. These are my mobile stands. I don't use them in my studio, but when I'm on the move, they are very handy. Okay. Yes, Jazzy. So you were asking about the muddiness in the original Klasiks. Well, that's the thing we worked on most, and I'm confident you'll find them much more clear in that respect. Funky Junk. Could you explain a little about the APS STAGE technology, and will the current situation impact your ability to supply distributors? Okay, so as you know, APS is a small company. Our production cycles are set up the way they are. I mean, for the moment we're in production. Now the biggest challenge we have is with the distributors. Depending on what parts come from where, that will change. So for the moment we've stocked up. Some things we're waiting on, but we hope that things will get to normal soon and we'll be able to pick up our normal production. But at the moment we're in full service. We haven't gone home. So the guys at APS who actually put the speakers together are hard at work every day to keep you happy and keep them coming. Stage technology, yes. I guess because of the way the phase is set up with the speaker, and when you're moving around your sources, right, from left to right, that phase will impact the way you perceive the sounds. So it'll impact your choice of panning, etc., etc. So what it does, it optimizes that in terms of phase, so that you can actually make your mixing decisions in a more predictable way, so to speak. So they are much more precise in terms of the stereo image, right? Let me see if I can have a look at here. Okay. Okay, let me go back. There you go, I'm back. So I think it's, the best person, I think I'll have another talk with Greg online, because he's the guy who invented this whole thing and keeps working on the new designs, and he's a very interesting fellow to listen to. his knowledge is completely on a different level from mine. I'm more of the end user, and this is my expertise. But I think if you're interested in that stage technology, I'll just ask him over and have another chat on Zoom or something, and do a live with him. Okay, what do you think about amplifiers in APS? This is class AB, why not class D? And that's KB Music Studio. Well, the reason I think is that we've tried many times with different models, the older ones and the new ones, to implement the class D. And it just never sounded that good enough for us. For some reason, they're fine with the subwoofers, but we found that with the monitors, we just preferred the sound of it, really. It was a question of, maybe one could call it taste, which is really what music is all about anyway. So that probably is the reason why you choose one preamplifier over the other one, right? Hi Piotr, yeah, he's a friend from Poland, Piotr Kiepuszewski, a great piano player who's just joined us. I don't recognize everybody, I guess, because you all have nicknames on YouTube. Is it a good idea to use APS Klasik 2020 to listen to music at home in a living room? Yes, actually, Bartek. It's a good question, and that is one of the reasons why we put the RCA at the back. So you can connect your normal preamp or CD player, or even your phone, right, to them in a easier manner, so you can get a mini jack to two RCAs. Although I must say that recently I've been I don't know if it's, I think it's hold on, I don't remember the name. I will put it in the link. There's a very nifty box that's a Bluetooth receiver that has a big volume knob, and it's got XLR, I believe, or XLR end line outputs, and it's powered by a just wall wart. And basically what it does, it receives the audio from your phone or any Bluetooth device and puts it onto a monitor with proper connection and a nice big volume knob. So that's something you could use at home as well. This is what I use at my home to connect our phones and Spotify and whatnot to the two Coax speakers together with the sub 10 that we have in our living room. Thanks, I appreciate that. I'm trying to do my best. Of course, I'm a sound engineer, musician, producer, and maybe not most accustomed to speaking live, but hopefully you got something out of it. Let's see, what else? What would be the minimum distance from a backwall you would place the Klasiks 2020? Using the old ones currently, and I'm very happy with them. Very curious about the sound of the new ones. Andreas Lear. Okay, so actually you can get them pretty close, even more so with these ones, which have a different shape, of the vents. They are ported in a different way. You can get them pretty close, maybe 5 centimeters. I think 5-10 centimeters is fine, as long as there's enough space and for them to also to ventilate and not to overcook. Then you should be fine. Let's see. What else is there? Mateusz Papiernik. Mateusz is another friend from Poland. Have you any observations on using them with one of the SUBs APS has an offer? It is often said that Coax pair well with sub 10. Yes, well, I use Coax with sub 10 in my home, but I must say I'm not the one to use, I'm not a fan of using a 2.1 system, which is 2 satellites and a sub. I find that having a source like sub underneath my feet somewhere doesn't really help my judgment. So I'm actually more for using 2 subs, if anything, to have the actual SPL spread more evenly throughout the room. It's difficult to get it will sound right. You'll get the frequency response right, but there will be. You must realize that the sound, although we're saying that this, the low end actually is spherical in its dispersion around the room. It's not exactly true. You'll find that the more subwoofers you put in the room, the better the response will be. I mean, some people are talking about 4 subwoofers in a room just to get that sound even, right, in every place. I find that my mixing is better when I'm not using subwoofers. So I even have a sub 15 under my desk that's not even connected except for my 5.1 mixes. I don't use it because I find that my monitoring is good enough for me to check the low end. Perhaps I'm not also dealing with music styles that require that amount of control in the hyper low end. So yes, it'll sound pretty good in the living room. In the studio, well, it's a choice everybody has to make. I think it's down to what you feel, if adding the subwoofer helps or not. The other day I had a talk with Lance Powell that you can find on YouTube, and we had exactly the same talk. Lance added a sub 12 to Aeon 2s, and at some point he realized that he was better off without the sub than with. So what he ended up doing is just keeping the Aeon 2s and finding that he had enough low end to mix properly, and so his sub is sitting for the moment useless. Jay-Z, thanks a lot for being here, and thanks for the right questions. There are no wrong questions. Okay, what would be the minimum distance? Oh, we had that. Okay. Ah, yes, Amrith was saying about the RCA connections. Yeah, it's a very useful way to connect your home devices, which also have RCAs, so it makes for simpler cabling. Yes. Mateusz. So as long as movies go, especially in 5.1, it will work because that's what we have in our living room. We're using a pair of Coax and a subwoofer, sub 10, to listen to music, and I think it works rather well. I mean, it's a really nice pairing, and Klasiks are no exception. It's just a question of tuning them. I guess most people, the way they tune their subwoofers is they turn it up until it shakes. So I guess, that's not much of a linear system, but maybe that's not what we need while listening to high action movies with Tom Cruise in them. Yeah, it's a good question. I have the Trinities back here, right? They're hidden behind. And I must say I'm not using them that much. I find the Aeon 2s are perfect. The Trinities are very, how should we say? It's a kind of a gentleman sound. So you can push harder. You can make your mixes more aggressive in the mid-range, high mids, and so that's what I would use them for. I basically use Trinities only to play music loud while I'm playing as well my parts on the piano or something on the roads, and I need the SPL to get me moving, and check the mixes, of course, at low levels. But other than that, my Trinities are very rarely on. They are not really used. I'm mainly relying on the Aeon 2s and the extenders, which I find absolutely wonderful to work with. I find the equilibrium, it's very subjective, of course. They do sound different. The Aeons are more forward, especially with my latest sound card, which is the Apollo X8. I moved from the old silver one to this one, so at the beginning I thought my ears would bleed out, but as it happens, it was just a question of getting used to the setup, and I'm very happy with it now. And I've been recently working on some hard rock music, which has a lot of aggressive high frequencies. Sorry. And that was fine. I mean, I was fine. And with the Trinity, the difference, if you go from Aeon to Trinity, it's not so much in the bass. Obviously, the bass is different, but it's more in the mids and the highs, the way they sound. They kind of, the Trinities will sound a little bit softer, more managed, more controlled. but then the Aeon 2s are very precise in that area. You kind of really feel, you move the EQ by an inch, really a tiny bit, and you already hear the difference, which is not the case on every speaker, obviously. Which also, begs the question: who do we make the music for? If we let's not forget that the end result rarely has a lot of bass on it, so people listen on on Bluetooth speakers, often in mono nowadays, really, or just playing from the phone, or on headphones, which not necessarily are linear and full spectrum, full frequency spectrum devices. So Jeff Martel, if you're asking about the Trinities, so they're acting like mains to be used further in bigger room. Yes, the Trinities are definitely to be used further down. Because of my setup, I'm pretty much against the wall, because I record in my room as well. I found a good place for the speakers I use on every day basis. But the Trinities are firing behind me, so I actually need to move that way in order to listen to them. So what I do is I put the mix on and blast it and just walk around and have a listen and see how they respond. That's the way I use them. I don't use them while sitting in my usual sweet spot, because I'm not at the right angle. Hold on. Let me see. The Aeon 2, that's a question from Funky Junk. The Aeon 2 with bass extender are incredible. We find them to be extremely well balanced. Lots of mid-range clarity and nothing overhyped in the low end. Very tight in control. Love them. Yeah, I agree. I'd agree that, ever since I started using Aeon 2s, I'm a big fan of Coax, which normally sit here also with me, but I found that I'm really happy enough to work basically on Aeon 2s, even without the extender. But obviously the extender adds a lot, and basically what it does, just as in case of a subwoofer, you can leave the really low end to the extender, while keeping Aeon 2 for a little bit higher in frequency range, which means it has to work less. So all the better for it. Andy Baker says he agrees totally. That's nice. It's nice to, it's always nice to feel the love from you guys, and who use the speakers. It makes us, it motivates us to do more. So Vlad has noticed my Trinity has ports on the front. Yes, I call them F16s. This is one of the earliest versions of Trinity, and it was really funky because you could turn them on the side and turn the actual module by 90 degrees. So you would keep the tweeter and mid-range ratio in the same way, right? But you can move them around. We didn't really produce them for that long. We only made a couple, and they sit here ever since. But the other ones do have some things which are better over them. The port on the new ones, on the ones that is very nice indeed. KB Music Studio, what is the room size suitable for the Classic 2020? Minimum, maximum, what do you think? Well, I would say there are a couple of things here. Obviously, it's meant for smaller rooms, but I'm using it in a 44-meter square room, and it's fine. The reason is that I haven't overdumped the room. The basic problem, I guess, that I find with rooms which are very damped, in terms of the high end, especially people who use too much wool and not enough reflective devices like the ones I have here. And also actually the black ones that you see here are reflective from 1 kilohertz up and absorptive below, because they have those little holes in them. So I'm thinking, well, if I can, listen to them in a 44 meter square room, then it's fine almost anywhere for a close range monitor, really. But it definitely holds its own in small rooms. Now, what you can do is, if you have a problem with your room, for example, because of the standing waves and things like that, which often happen the smaller you get, is to basically cut the bass, see how much you can go, how far you can go before you start moving those waves in the wrong direction, so if you have a standing wave that you didn't manage to control, maybe it's better to actually keep the bass a little bit higher in order to not to aggravate the situation. So Jan Safarik, that's from Czechoslovakia. Hello, Jan. Can be the extender used? Can the extender used? Yeah, okay. Well, Jan, no, our feeling is that the extender is really made for Aeon 2 for now. It's got special presets. If you're really keen, you could use it, but I don't know if it's not a bit of an overkill, because well, obviously the price difference is quite substantial. It's about 3 times the price of Klasiks for a pair of extenders, and I don't think you'd get that much change. I mean, you could obviously adapt it and work with the frequencies, but I'm wondering if that's the right solution for that. So Christopher Jouvet, I don't know if you're French, Christopher. Hello, if you're French, then bonjour. I've spent 16 years in France, so I got left with love of French language. With the lock-in, you've spent a lot of time with the Aeon 2s. Well, that's nice. I'm glad you had somebody to keep you company then. They're a good company. Let's see. Anyone else? Any more questions? I think it looks like. Okay, well then, also one of the things we could touch upon is the room correction. We've talked about it with Lance Powell. I myself have a hardware room correction made out of a mini DSP and live DRAC. And I found over the years, because I've had it for a few years, that I've actually kept it switched off most of the time. I felt better off without the correction than with it. Tried, to the best of my possibilities to make the room linear, and then that's what happened. Jeff Martel, you're really not a salesman. No, I'm not a salesman. I'm a composer and a sound engineer, producer, and it's true. I mean, I co-founded APS in 2006 because, well, I met the right people. I met Ray, I met Greg, Arek at the time, and some other folks, and we decided that it would be great to have Polish studio monitors, and it turned out to be an adventure. I think quite challenging at times, but I'm very happy I'm here and I can spend time talking to you, and I'm really happy that I can work on them and other people can as well, and make great music on them. Jan, you've moved. Sorry. Well, news travels slowly here. Is there any? Okay, Jan is asking about something that I've touched upon just before. Can we use them horizontally? Yes, but do bear in mind that the speakers combine differently. If you're not moving much left and right, I guess you're fine, right? Because you'll once you find the right sweet spot, it should be okay. The problem would be, for me, if they were standing on top of a console and you were moving while you were EQing, moving from channel to channel. the way the tweeter and the woofer combines while they're positioned vertically is different than when they're positioned the other way around. So you would have to test. Most of the time, I kept my speakers always vertically. Yeah, I gained your trust. Oh my God, thanks. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're closing. I think there are not really many more questions, and we're closing to 6 p.m. over here in Poland. So I think we'll be stopping, and I would like to say hello to everybody. Really lots of love from Poland, from APS to you guys. You make us work. You know, this is the reason we're here still, is because of you buying the speakers and having fun with them. And Amrit, are we proud? Yes, of course. We are very proud. And I think, you know, we're not the only ones now in Poland. You have Better Maker, you have Looptrotter, you have many other brands which you have, for example, Hum Audio microphones from which I use, the amazing ribbon microphones from Krzysztof Ton from Ton Studio. So there are a few brands which are really starting to make a name for themselves. So we're very, very lucky and happy to be in that company. Thank you very much. Have a good time. Be patient. Stay healthy. Stay well. And talk to you soon.